Chapter 1. The Broken Accord. The Galactic Concord was humanity's finest hour. After centuries of war and isolation, Earth had emerged as a beacon of diplomacy and innovation, earning its place among the great interstellar nations. The Concord, an alliance of 25 species, promised peace, mutual prosperity, and the free exchange of knowledge. Humanity had invested everything into the Accord, its resources, its people, and its hopes for a brighter future. Captain Alara Hayes stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Wrath, a sleek, cutting-edge battleship bristling with experimental weaponry. She stared at the holographic star chart, her fists clenched. The Concord's banner floated in the corner of the display, a mocking reminder of promises shattered. "We trusted them," Alara growled, her voice like steel cutting through the cold silence. Around her, her crew exchanged uneasy glances. It had started with whispers of unrest in the Concord's outer systems. Humanity, as the newest member, was tasked with quelling the uprisings. But when Earth sent fleets to pacify the turmoil, the betrayal struck. The Aldhar Dominion, a long-standing Concord member, ambushed the human fleets in coordinated attacks. Dozens of ships were obliterated. Then came the orbital bombardment of Earth's colonies. Billions of lives were lost in hours. A guttural voice snapped Alara from her thoughts. "Captain Admiral Harkoff on the comm," said Lieutenant Draven, the ship's tactical officer. Alara nodded sharply, and the hologram of Admiral Harkoff materialized before her, his uniform immaculate despite the chaos consuming humanity. His expression was grim. "The Concord Council has declared humanity rogue," Harkoff said without preamble. "They've sanctioned extermination. Every allied fleet is turning against us." Alara's gut twisted. "Why? What did we do wrong?" "The Aldhar framed us. They claimed we were planning a coup, backed it up with fabricated evidence. The Council didn't even question it. Then diplomacy is dead," Alara said, her voice cold. Harkoff nodded. "Our fleets are scattered. Earth is vulnerable. We receive reports of a massive Concord fleet heading straight for the Sol system." Alara's jaw tightened. She felt the weight of her ancestors pressing on her shoulders. "What are our orders, sir?" Harkoff's hologram flickered as the ship's systems strained. "Survive, Captain. We are no longer defenders of the Concord. We are now humanity's sword and shield. Hit them hard. Make them bleed. Let the galaxy know we will not die quietly." The connection cut, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Alara's crew turned to her, their faces pale but resolute. "We fight," she said simply, her voice carrying a fire that reignited their spirits. Her first officer, Commander Amir Delane, stepped forward. "Captain, the Concord fleet has deployed blockades across key hyperlanes. We're boxed in, then we make our own way out," Alara said. She pointed to the map. "The Dracos Nebula. It's unstable, but if we navigate carefully, we can break through the blockade." The crew sprang into action, their fear melting into determination. Alara took her place in the captain's chair, her gaze fixed on the void ahead. As the Horizon's Wrath plunged into the swirling maelstrom of the Dracos Nebula, the ship groaned under the strain, but it held firm. The crackling energy fields illuminated the bridge in eerie flashes of light. Then, as they emerged on the other side, the blockade came into view, 3 massive Concord dreadnoughts waiting like predators. "Enemy ships locking weapons," Draven reported. "Good," Alara said, her eyes narrowing. "Activate cloaking. Prepare the X-13 kinetic rounds and plasma lances. Let's give them a reason to fear us." The Horizon's Wrath vanished from their sensors, and humanity's vengeance began. Chapter 2. The First Strike. The bridge of the Horizon's raft was bathed in the soft glow of tactical displays, casting sharp shadows on the faces of the crew. Every breath was measured, every move deliberate. Captain Alara Hayes watched the holographic readout as her ship crept closer to the Concorde blockade, her cloaking systems holding steady despite the massive power draw. "Range to target," she asked. 16,000 kilometers in closing, replied Lieutenant Draven, his fingers dancing over his console. Alara's voice was ice cold. "Let me know when we're within 5,000. Until then, no one breathes too hard." The crew chuckled nervously, but the tension remained thick. Alara's heart pounded against her ribs, but she refused to let it show. The 3 Concorde dreadnoughts loomed ahead, monstrous behemoths bristling with weaponry. Each one outclassed the Horizon's wrath in size and firepower, but Alara had an advantage they didn't: the element of surprise. "Commander Delane," Alara said, glancing at her first officer. "Status on the X-13 rounds?" "Armed and ready, Captain," Delane said, his expression grim. "Once we're in range, we'll launch a volley of 5. The kinetic impact alone will rip through their hulls." "Good. I want the plasma lances primed to follow immediately. Target their engines first. Cripple their ability to maneuver. Then we'll finish them off." The ship crept closer. The dreadnoughts remained oblivious, scanning the nebula's chaotic energy fields for any sign of the humans they believed cornered. 5,000 kilometers, Draven reported, his voice tight with anticipation. "Drop the cloak and fire all weapons," Alara ordered. The Horizon's raft shimmered into view, a predator emerging from the shadows. Its sleek, angular design caught the nebula's eerie light as it unleashed hell. The X-13 kinetic rounds tore through the void. Massive projectiles accelerated to near-light speeds. 2 of them slammed into the lead dreadnought, punching through its thick armor like paper. Explosions rippled across its hull as secondary systems detonated. Direct hits. Draven shouted. Their shields didn't even register in time. "Target their engines," Alara snapped. The plasma lances lit up, beams of superheated energy slicing through the lead dreadnought's rear section. Its engines erupted in a violent cascade, leaving the ship dead in the water. The other 2 dreadnoughts scrambled to respond, their weapon systems roaring to life. "They've locked on," Delane called out. "Evasive maneuvers," Alara barked. The ship lurched as its thrusters fired, weaving through the incoming barrage of plasma bolts and missile swarms. The Horizon's raft returned fire, launching a spread of guided torpedoes. 1 torpedo found its mark, slamming into the 2nd dreadnought's command deck. The explosion sent shards of debris spinning into the void. "Captain, enemy fighters are deploying," Draven warned. Alara's eyes narrowed. "Deploy our drones. I want them running interference while we focus on the big targets." The Horizon's raft launched its own swarm of combat drones, sleek machines armed with plasma cutters and micromissiles. They streaked toward the enemy fighters, engaging them in a dazzling display of fire and counterfire. The 3rd dreadnought fired its primary weapon, a massive particle beam that scorched through the nebula. The Horizon's raft rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the beam as it sliced through the ship's shields, sending sparks flying across the bridge. "Shields down to 60%. Draven shouted, "Keep firing." Alara yelled back. "We don't stop until they're scrapped." The 2nd dreadnought, crippled but still operational, attempted to retreat, its engines burning bright. Alara wasn't about to let it escape. "Target the retreating ship," she ordered. "Hit it with everything we've got." A barrage of plasma lances and torpedoes slammed into the fleeing dreadnought, tearing it apart in a brilliant explosion. The shockwave rattled the Horizon's Wrath, but Alara barely noticed. The third dreadnought, now alone, hesitated. For a brief moment, it seemed to consider retreating. "Captain," Delane said, his voice steady despite the chaos, "we've got them on the ropes. Should we pursue?" Alara's gaze hardened. "No. Let them run. They'll carry word of what happened here. I want the galaxy to know that humanity isn't beaten." The dreadnought powered its engines and fled, limping back toward Concord space. As the battlefield fell silent, the bridge of the Horizon's Wrath erupted in cheers. Alara allowed herself a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. This was only the beginning. "Damage report," she said, cutting through the celebration. "Minor damage to the shields and port thrusters," Delane replied. "We'll need repairs, but we're still operational." "Good," Alara said. She stood, her gaze sweeping over her crew. This victory was hard-earned, but don't get comfortable. The Concord won't take this lightly. They'll send more. Draven nodded, and we'll send them back in pieces. Alara allowed herself a grim chuckle. "Damn right. Plot a course to Titan Outpost. We'll regroup and plan our next move." As the Horizon's Wrath disappeared into the nebula's swirling depths, humanity's vengeance began to echo across the stars. Chapter 3. The Turning Tide. The Horizon's Wrath emerged from the Dracos Nebula, its hull streaked with scorch marks and its engines humming with effort. Titan Outpost loomed ahead, an asteroid-turned battle station orbiting the icy moon of Saturn. It was one of humanity's last fortified bastions, its shields glowing faintly against the void. Captain Alara Hayes sat in her quarters, staring at a hologram of Earth. The blue-green orb flickered as the message from the Concord replayed for the 5th time. Humanity has violated the sacred tenets of the Galactic Concord. Their aggression threatens the peace of the galaxy. By decree of the Council, their species shall be eradicated to ensure the safety of all others. The words burned into her mind like a brand. They'd turned the galaxy against humanity with a lie. They'd murdered billions and still called themselves the protectors of peace. Her door chimed, pulling her from the dark spiral of her thoughts. "Come," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Commander Amir Delane entered, his uniform slightly rumpled. He held a datapad in one hand and a grim expression on his face. "Captain, we've received reports from the Resistance. It's worse than we thought." Alara gestured for him to continue. "The Concord's propaganda machine is in full swing," Amir said, handing her the datapad. "They're broadcasting footage of destroyed colonies, claiming we attacked our own people to frame the Altar, and they're targeting Resistance cells across our remaining strongholds. Mars fell yesterday. Luna Base is holding, but barely." Alara's hands tightened into fists. "And Earth, still under siege," Amir replied. "The planetary defense grid is holding for now, but it won't last against another Concord fleet." Alara stood, her jaw set. "Then we can't afford to wait. The Concord has to pay for what they've done, and we need to hit them where it hurts." Amir nodded, his expression sharpening. "The Altar homeworld." Alara's gaze snapped to him. "That's bold." "It's more than bold, Captain," Amir said. "It's strategic. The Altar orchestrated this betrayal, and their planet is the nerve center of their military operations. Take it out, and the Concord will lose its backbone." Alara paced the small room, her mind racing. A direct assault on the Altar homeworld would be suicide. But if they succeeded, it could shift the entire balance of power. How do we get close? She asked. Their defenses will be impenetrable. Amir grinned. The kind of grin that only came from someone with a truly insane plan. We don't go in with brute force. We use their arrogance against them. The resistance intercepted a Concord transmission about a high-level meeting on Althar Prime. Representatives from key species will be there to solidify their anti-human coalition. Ilara stopped pacing, her eyes narrowing. A diplomatic summit? Exactly. They won't expect an attack in their own stronghold, Amir said. We slip in, sabotage their defense grid, and detonate their planetary fusion core. It'll take out their entire command structure and send a message the galaxy can't ignore. Ilara's heart thundered at the audacity of the plan. And how do we slip in? The Horizon's wrath is too conspicuous, Amir admitted. But we've got a captured Concord shuttle in Titan's hangar. It'll be tight, but with the right crew, we can make it work. Ilara nodded slowly. You've already picked your team? Amir didn't flinch. I have. You, me, Draven, and Chief Engineer Lien. Small, capable, and ready for whatever we face. Ilara stared at the datapad, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Billions of lives hung in the balance, and humanity's survival teetered on the edge of a knife. Do it, she said finally. Prepare the shuttle and load up every weapon and explosive we can carry. We're taking the fight to their doorstep. The shuttle Aegis streaked toward Althar Prime under the guise of a Concord diplomatic craft. The team was silent, each member focused on the mission ahead. Draven manned the controls, his hands steady despite the tension radiating through the cabin. The Althar homeworld filled the viewport, a glittering sphere of teal and gold, its surface alive with sprawling cities and orbital platforms. Althar traffic control is hailing us, Draven said, his voice tight. Stick to the script, Ilara ordered. Draven keyed the comm. This is Concord Show Aegis. Designation 47 Delta. Carrying delegates for the summit. There was a pause, then a curt reply. Confirmed 47 Delta. Proceed to Docking Bay Alpha 9. The shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere, its engines roaring as it approached the massive spire of the Althar Council Tower. The team exchanged tense glances as the docking clamps latched onto their ship. Remember, Ilara said, her voice low and firm, we hit the grid first. Lien, you'll disable their planetary defense network while we secure the fusion core. No hesitation. No mistakes. The team nodded, their faces set. As the shuttle's hatch hissed open, Ilara led the way, her hand resting on the hilt of her plasma blade. The polished halls of the council tower stretched before them, filled with bustling diplomats and guards. The mission was suicide, but if humanity was to survive, they would make Althar Prime burn. Chapter 4. The Flames of Retribution. The air inside the Althar Council Tower was thick with tension. The polished, obsidian-like floors reflected the stark lights of the grand corridors, and Althar guards stood at rigid attention along the walls. Their crystalline armor shimmered, making them seem like living statues. Ilara Hayes kept her steps deliberate, each movement a calculated mask of calm. Behind her, Amir, Draven, and Lien carried themselves with equal precision, their weapons hidden beneath their stolen Concord uniforms. The team moved as one, a silent shadow amidst the bustling diplomats and functionaries. They followed the flow of the crowd toward the summit chambers, taking care not to draw attention. Lien peeled off first, her compact toolkit concealed in the folds of her uniform. Good luck, Lien, Ilara murmured into the calm implant in her ear. Lien's reply was steady. I'll have that grid offline before you reach the core. Don't wait for me. The rest of the team pushed forward, weaving through ornate corridors adorned with towering holographic banners bearing the Altar sigil. The council tower was a monument to their arrogance, a gleaming spire that seemed to declare their superiority to the galaxy. Alara, clench her fists. Soon, this place would crumble. Lien's task. Chief Engineer Lien reached the access hatch leading to the planetary defense grid's central hub. Her small frame allowed her to slip through unnoticed as she bypassed the rudimentary biometric lock with ease. The hub was a maze of glowing conduits and energy relays. The soft hum of the planetary shield generators vibrated through the floor. Lien set to work, her hands moving with practiced efficiency as she planted detonation charges at key points. She paused for a moment, her comm implant crackling. Lien, status? Alara's voice came through, calm but urgent. Grid deactivation in 60 seconds, Lien replied. As her fingers danced over the final control panel, she heard footsteps. A pair of guards, their crystalline armor clinking faintly, rounded the corner. Damn it, Lien muttered, yanking a plasma pistol from her side. She fired before they could react, the shots precise and deadly. The guards crumpled to the floor, but the sound of the skirmish echoed down the corridor. Lien worked faster. She finished bypassing the last relay, and with a sharp hiss, the planetary defense grid powered down. It's done, she said into her comm. You're clear for the core. Go. The core assault. Alara, Amir, and Draven reached the elevator that would take them to the planetary fusion core. The Altar had buried it deep beneath the Council Tower, its immense energy sustaining the city's orbital platforms and military systems. Guards, Draven whispered, nodding toward two soldiers stationed by the elevator. Alara didn't hesitate. She surged forward, her plasma blade igniting with a sharp hiss. The weapon's edge glowed with lethal energy as she sliced through the first guard's weapon and drove the blade into his chest. Amir dispatched the second guard with a quick burst from his plasma pistol. The elevator doors slid open and the team stepped inside. Draven keyed in the override codes they'd stolen, and the elevator descended rapidly, the hum of its magnetic rails growing louder as they neared the core. When the doors opened, the fusion core loomed before them, a massive, cylindrical construct pulsating with energy. Its radiance bathed the chamber in a harsh white light. Draven, cover us, Alara ordered. Amir, set the charges. The team moved with precision. Amir planted explosive devices along the core stabilizers, while Draven kept his weapon trained on the entrances. Alara watched the perimeter, her senses razor-sharp. Charges set, Amir announced, his voice tense. Suddenly, the chamber's alarms blared. The Altar knew they were there. Here they come, Draven shouted as guards poured into the room, their crystalline armor gleaming like predators in the harsh light. Alara charged forward, her blade spinning in a deadly arc. The first wave of guards fell quickly, but more replaced them, their plasma rifles blazing. Amir joined the fray, his pistol firing in rapid bursts, while Draven used the cover of the core's massive supports to snipe at the advancing soldiers. The air was thick with the acrid scent of plasma burns and the metallic tang of blood. Amir, how much time do we need? Alara shouted, slicing through another guard. Charges are set for 3 minutes, he yelled back. We need to get out of here now. Alara's comm crackled. Captain, Lien's voice came through, strained. I've got reinforcements heading your way. You've got to move. Understood, Alara replied. We're pulling out. The team fought their way back to the elevator, the guards relentless in their pursuit. Alara's blade cut a path through the chaos, her crew close behind. They dove into the elevator just as the charges detonated. The explosion rocked the entire tower. The fusion core's implosion sent shockwaves rippling through Altar Prime, tearing through the city and setting off secondary explosions across the planet's infrastructure. As the elevator ascended, Alara watched the carnage through a viewport. The once pristine skyline of Altar Prime was now a chaotic inferno. Escape and victory. The team sprinted back to the Aegis, their path littered with debris and panicked Altar citizens. Lien joined them at the docking bay, her face streaked with soot but triumphant. "Let's get the hell out of here," she said. Draven piloted the shuttle into the atmosphere as Altar Prime burned behind them. The planet's surface was a patchwork of destruction, its power grid offline, its cities crumbling. The Aegis punched through the stratosphere and engaged its cloaking system, vanishing into the void. On the bridge, Alara stood tall, her crew battered but alive. "We just crippled the Concord's strongest ally," Amir said, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. "And we sent a message," Alara replied. "Humanity will not be forgotten. We will not forgive, and we will not stop." As the shuttle disappeared into hyperspace, the flames of Altar Prime continued to rage, a burning testament to humanity's vengeance. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now it would face the wrath of a species fighting for survival. Epilogue: The Rising Storm. The destruction of Altar Prime sent shockwaves through the galaxy, rippling far beyond the ruined cities and shattered power grids of the once proud homeworld. News of the attack spread faster than Concord propaganda could contain it. Some species recoiled in fear, questioning their loyalty to the Altar and the Galactic Concord. Others, long simmering under the weight of Concord dominance, saw humanity strike as a spark, a sign that the mighty alliance was not invincible. On board the Horizon's raft, Captain Alara Hayes stood in the war room, staring at a star chart lit with markers for Concord fleets and strongholds. Around her, her senior officers gathered, their faces illuminated by the dim blue glow of the holograms. "We've made our move," Alara said, her voice steady but laced with an edge of exhaustion. "But we've also painted a target on ourselves. The Concord will retaliate. They'll throw everything they have at us." "Let them," Draven said, his tone defiant. "They thought we'd lie down and die after the first strike. We've shown them we're more than just survivors. We're fighters." Amir nodded. "We've sown chaos in their ranks. Reports are already coming in of rebellions in Concord-controlled systems. Resistance cells are seeing this as the turning point." Alara's gaze didn't waver from the star chart. "And that's exactly why we need to be smarter. Altar Prime was a victory, but it was also a gamble. We don't have the numbers to fight the Concord head-on. If we're going to win this war, we need allies, and we need them fast." Lien leaned against the edge of the table, her expression thoughtful. "There are species out there that hate the Concord as much as we do. The Morvac, the Cyril, even some factions within the Concord itself. If we can convince them to join us—" "Convincing them will take more than words," Alara interrupted. "They'll want proof that we can protect them, that we're worth the risk." Amir crossed his arms. "Then we give them proof. We take down another Concord stronghold, something big enough to shake their confidence even more." Alara nodded slowly. "The Concord Central Supply Depot. It's the lifeline for their fleets in this quadrant. If we hit it, we cripple their ability to respond to resistance movements." Draven grinned. "And we show potential allies that humanity is still a force to be reckoned with." Alara turned to the hologram, tapping the display to focus on the depot. It was a sprawling orbital facility, bristling with defenses, surrounded by an armada of smaller support ships. The challenge was immense, but so were the stakes. Then it's settled, Illyra said. We regroup, rearm, and strike again. The Concord thinks it's hunting us, but it's the galaxy that's hunting them now. Galactic echoes. In the aftermath of Altar Prime's destruction, the Galactic Concord was reeling. The council chambers, once a place of order and authority, devolved into chaos. Delegates from smaller member species demanded answers, accusing the Altar of provoking the attack and questioning the Concord's ability to protect its members. On the far edges of Concord space, rebellion brewed. The Morvac Confederacy, a brutal warrior species long stifled by Concord treaties, began mobilizing fleets, claiming the strike on Altar Prime as their call to arms. The Cyril Unity, a technologically advanced but politically fractured species, debated secession from the Concord. The galaxy was no longer united under the Concord's banner. It was fracturing, and the spark of humanity's defiance was the catalyst. The legacy of humanity, back on the horizon's wrath. Illyra stood alone on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. The weight of leadership bore down on her, heavier than she'd ever imagined. Billions of lives depended on her decisions, and every victory came at a cost. Her reflection in the viewport stared back at her, weary but unbroken. They underestimated us, she whispered to the void. They thought humanity was weak, that we'd fold under pressure. But they forgot one thing. She clenched her fists, the spark of determination in her eyes glowing like a fire that would never be extinguished. We don't just survive. We endure. We adapt. And when you push us to the edge, we fight back. The stars ahead seemed brighter, as if they, too, carried the hope and fury of a species fighting for its place in the galaxy. Humanity's revenge was just beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same.